everyone. On behalf of the British Council and the Arts and Culture Resource India, I would like to welcome you to our interactive Festival Connections webinar. As part of Festival Connections, our monthly online program of expertise, knowledge, and networking between India and the UK, we're excited to bring to you sponsorship and festivals through the Looking Glass. For those who don't know me, I am Rianne D'Souza, and I'm currently leading on the festivals program at the British Council. In this session, we have a stellar lineup of experts. We have a stellar lineup of experts from the industry who will explore the dynamic nature of brand sponsorship and festivals and the changes it has undergone in recent times. Pre-pandemic, our Festivals Academy program ran face-to-face in Goa and Guwahati. From January 2021, the residency will be going online with trainers both in the UK and in India. The course will be accredited by a UK-based university. Watch out for the British Council's face for more details. At the British Council, through some of our work, we have always been closely monitoring the impact of COVID-19 on the creative sector here in India. The Taking the Temperature report that we are doing with FICCI and the Artex company is one of them. The next edition and the next report will be released next month. British Council has been a catalyst to strengthen cultural and social development in the creative sector. With the dawn of this new reality, we are aware of the uncertainty surrounding our industry, both in India and the UK. Nevertheless, we believe that culture connects us and creativity and collaboration binds us together, now more than ever. With that, I am pleased to hand over to Rashmi Dhanwani, founder, director of the Artex company, to take the session forward with our esteemed guests. Over to you, Rashmi.
Thank you so much, Rianne, and delighted once again to be able to host this session with the British Council. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world right now. What we have for you today is a stellar discussion on the theme of sponsorships. And we have an excellent panel for you today who will speak on the topic of sponsorships for cultural festivals. Before I introduce them, I would like to inform you that we have been ensuring that more of you are able to have access to this session. So this entire event today is being translated in a couple of ways. We've got sign language interpretation and 2 language interpreters in Tamil, Deepa and John. Thank you so much for your work, everyone. If you are on Zoom right now, and if you'd like to switch on one of the translation modes, you can look at the button at the extreme right called interpretation. So you can just click on that. Our translators will be interpreting the session, which is very different from direct translation because we don't have a full script for this session. So please do go for that option if you'd like to listen to it in a language of your preference, which in this case, what we have on offer is Tamil. I'd like to now introduce our speakers. First up, we have Jobin Matthew. He comes with 7 years of experience in sales and marketing and is currently the head of media, digital, and PR for Asian Paints. He's responsible for how consumers view the brand. Jobin finds delight in helping brands tell convincing stories backed by research and consumer insights. With Jobin today, we also have Ravi DC, who is the managing partner of DC Books and the managing director of Current Books India, which is the 2nd largest bookshop chain in India. Ravi has also founded the Kerala Literature Festival, which is emerged as the 2nd largest lit festival in India in terms of participation and quality of content. He's currently serving in various professional bodies, including CII, TIE, and other similar bodies. And then finally, we have Udit Medirata. He's an FMCG veteran and comes with over 10 years of strategy, marketing, and sales experience in companies like AB InBev and Johnson & Johnson. Udit has expertise in portfolio and brand management, innovation strategy, integrated brand communications, digital marketing, P&L management. And currently, he leads brand marketing for AB InBev for South Asia. What we'll cover with this stellar lineup of speakers today are 3 major areas. 1, we're going to investigate and comprehend the brand values and philosophies that drive the sponsorship decisions of these organizations. Second, we deep dive into the nuances of what return on investment means for these organizations. And third, we analyze the impact of the pandemic on sponsorship trends and the decisions that the organizations have been taking into account as they move into the next year of financial planning. But first up, let's look at the kind of cultural projects our panel has been engaging with. Sponsorships overall in general, and specifically during the pandemic in particular. So I'm going to start with you, Jobin, and ask you about the business and social objectives of Asian Paints. What do you look for essentially when you talk about brand values in a festival or a cultural project, both pre-pandemic and now since the lockdown in March? You can just give me a second. I'm going to share my presentation, rather your presentation.
So hi, it's great to be with everybody to have a very out of the box discussion for us. Mostly, we marketeers normally are stuck into advertisements and things like that. So talk about uh, varied things which we also take a lot of pride and pleasure in is great. Today, obviously, we're going to talk about two aspects of it. Majorly, which is going to be Start India Foundation, which with whom we work a lot. Asian Paints, as you guys know, is a leader brand in India, and our major strength is obviously in deco coatings and also in the decor functionalities. Uh, you'll be surprised to know that we have been working with Start for the last 7 odd years, and it has been a strong collaboration with them. We're extremely proud because this also represents what we want to do. Ideally, if you go to the next slide, Rashmi, uh, these are some of the projects that we have done with Start. Uh, we, have taken this key role of transforming living spaces, and we believe that wherever our customers are going to be, those are going to be living spaces that we want to transform. And the second core motive for us is that we strongly believe that art is for the masses, not just reserved for classes majorly, which traditionally has been a point of view. Four artworks on display over there. One is actually a basketball court in Bombay in St. Xavier School, which actually shows somewhat a divide between boys and girls, and we say that it's an equal playing field for everybody. The second one is obviously the ISRO, the Lunar Drome, which was dedicated to ISRO from our end. This is the Nehru Planetarium in Bombay. We have the work that we did during COVID, actually, which is called Heroes of Bombay at Mahim Junction. This is actually a tribute to all the frontline workers who work. And to the right hand side is a project called as Donate a Wall, wherein people give us their entries and they submit entries. We get lakhs of entries out of which we select the few in a city. So every year we come to a city. Last year it was UP, Uttar Pradesh that we worked in, and this is an artwork from Varanasi that we did. Um, as we go to the next slide, you can clearly see our objectives are clearly two. It is transforming living spaces because we own the space. We believe that that's a space that we can work with. It's a very genuine collaboration for us. Start India Foundation for us, is not a place that we don't find them as a sponsorship or some deal sort of a process, but we genuinely find them and look them as partners. That is why in most of the films that you see, we'll say that we are supported by Asian Paints, or we support Start in any functionality. 7 years, it has been great work that we have been doing. We have done all corners of India, all the way from Nagaland to Ahmedabad to Patna. This year we're going to Kerala. We have a art district in Lodi. We have an art district in Hyderabad, in Bombay, in Chennai. The photo that you see here is of the one in Chennai. Um, so overall, that is the kind of work that we do, and we strongly believe in the freedom that we give to them. To the first question which you asked, okay, how is it that we look at it, say, from a branding value? Uh, to be very honest, we believe that we want to bring art to the masses. That is the first part of it, and second, we feel that we own this space absolutely well. It's a direct correlation for us. People can link with us. We want to uplift living spaces wherever possible. Those are the examples that you could see of. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll clearly see an example of how Lodi Art District has been coming up over the few years. This is one of the recent most projects that we just did, and then very beautiful indeed. The best part is we do not control the artwork, we do not control the artist, and we give complete freedom over there. If you see over there, you will not find any branding of Asian Paints, none whatsoever. And we believe that strongly that we don't want to plaster our brand across everywhere. People will notice. See, there is a certain segmentation when you obviously do marketing, and festivals come very important over there. Because certain segment of population cannot be reached out through an advertisement or a digital ad or anything like that. So for them, we believe that these ways work, and if we go all out plastering up branding out there, I think we will lose out on them as well. uh, that is the direct indirect way in which we like to represent ourselves over there. Let's move a slide, please. So whenever we enter into a location, for example, this is a few examples of Kanagi which is coming through. We will run a lot of segments where we are able to take the voice of the consumers and voice of the people who live over there to help us select a great artwork that comes through. So obviously their involvement is very much required, and because of which once the artworks comes through, I think the people of that society or the people of that area also buy into the project a lot. In the next slide also we can clearly see how we have expanded from just being the guys who just bought artists out there, to the next generation where we are taking artwork from very traditional artwork from India and then trying to extrapolate into the bigger scale. If you see, this is Baju Sham, who works with Gond artist over there, and he has bought that artwork, and we did an artwork in Lodi art district over there, which is called craft to contemporary, from craft how we wanted to bring it, you know, to all the masses over there, so the city audience could enjoy and witness the art that he bought through. Over here, on your second question of how we look at brand measurements and things like that, we believe that, see, online engagement is easily measurable, and tonality scores, all those are easily done. We believe that we are catering to a different segment, and in that different segmentation, minimal branding is what we look at. It is not going to be like all campaigns that we do, but yeah, definitely we look at digital first as an approach, at least for now. Let's move on. And these are the few sample pictures. I think if it comes on the screen, yeah, these are the things that we have done, a few from Chennai, a few from Delhi and other cities. The top left which you see over there is what we were talking about previously, the Gond artwork which came to Lodi art district over there, which is visible for you guys. uh, so that is one aspect that we do with Start India Foundation. We look at basically taking properties or places which people would have not wanted to color or paint and things like that, and we like to transform it into big landmarks for the cities. And let's be very clear, we this is in no way CSR. We do not believe in giving free paints or doing anything like that. This is a pure marketing initiative where we are supporting Start India Foundation to send our message out there, and we are very proud of these projects. You can anytime visit our Instagram handle or our YouTube handle for Asian Paints to check out these artworks. The second thing that I want to talk about is Asian Paints Sharat Samman, which is actually a festival that we do in Kolkata for the Pujo times, which just got over. Just Rashmi, can you please help me just go the slides ahead one by one? Very quickly, I just want to take you through for the paucity of time. Uh, yeah. So here, pandals are a big deal for West Bengal, and people want to, explore that every now and then. Here, what we do is that we want to honor pandals, and we want to honor the creators who make these beautiful pratimas during Durga Pujo, which is there across the city. It's a great festival for us to be in, and our whole policy over there by doing this festival is only and only to felicitate the great artists who work over there on the pandals and also on the pratimas. Um, that is all about Sharat Saman. A lot to talk about. People follow it very keenly because we are one of the key properties that we look at. Two winners from this year, just for reference point, not in any order. To the left hand side, you can see that pandal, which is beautifully made completely by paper, and to the right hand side is a pratima of a migrant mother, which was which was viral. Actually, most of you would have gotten a chance to look at it. So those are the things that we rewarded. uh, so that is all that we have. We have two big properties, definitely. Asian Paint Sharat Saman, which is a festival in Kolkata, and Start India, which we do across. We also have been doing well in the donate a wall space, where you can donate a wall, and what we do is that we take it up and then we redo it, and it's like a story for us to be with. Quickly, I want to play two videos, especially since there is a Tamil audience over here. I will play for you guys. First is the Kanagi Art District, which is there, the artwork that we did last year. And the Lodi Art District artwork is going to come up next after Kanagi, which is the Delhi one. Both are 1 minute videos each. If you guys can just help me out and just play that out. So that was Kanagi for y'all. I think they're going to just play the Delhi one, which has been the most long-standing art district for us, which has been working for the past 7 years. That's going to come up next. Yeah, so a quick closure on the things that we have spoken of is that I believe that our greatest strength as Asian Paints and Start India is given the fact that we have given a lot of freedom to our artists and to the project managers to deliver on it. And the beautiful thing is that when you give them the freedom, they obviously go into the nooks and corners of that city and find out elements that are key for the city and try to bring out a message, that works for both of us. The branding is not out there as clearly as said, but then again, this is a digital world. You can always take things from the physical world and take it digitally and then promote and amplify it. So it works for both of us. Hope you guys like the work that we have been doing, and obviously great thanks to the partners at Start and at Sharat Saman who do things for us. I look forward to more questions. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin. I think that was enormously helpful. One of the things that we got when we asked people about what do they think sponsors and brand wants, needs, or other, when you're engaging with them for a cultural project, they all spoke about footfalls and branding. And here you're sort of walking the other way, saying that that could be a symptomatic output of that engagement and doesn't have to be the first direct output of that engagement. So it's really refreshing to hear that from you. What you have on screen for all of those attendees who are on Zoom with us is a poll coming up. So please take a couple of minutes to fill that up. We also are open for questions. You have the Q&A box. I encourage you to post your questions here. For all of you who are on Facebook, please add your questions there. Our team is moderating the Facebook session as well, so we would take questions from there and bring it to you. With that, I would like to invite Ravi to join us now and give us a sense of the Literature Festival. But Ravi, before we dive into you, you about your work, I just want to sort of give your positionality, sense of your positionality to everyone, which is you yourself are a brand in some ways. And you mentioned to me when we were speaking that CLF will not have a title sponsor. And that's something you've chosen not to have. So you have a litany of smaller sponsors with, but not a title sponsor. So given that structure, I'm very curious to find out from you of your understanding of why these brands are willing to support or sponsor CLF, and what's the motivation, how they look at return on investment. Over to you, Ravi.
Thank you, Rashmi. In fact, we are a pretty new literature festival. Actually, we are only 5 years old. This January, it's going to be the 6th year. We have been quite successful in terms of getting sponsors. More 85 to 90% of the sponsors are still with us from the first year. That's one thing I must thank my sponsors, actually, because that has been one of the success of the journey actually so far. We started this LitFest as a part of celebrating the 100 years of DC Kirikemuri, in whose name the trust is found actually. So the reason why, we thought, Kerala lacks a LitFest actually. In the southern region, there's no major literature festival actually, and most literature festivals focus on English and international books. Most festivals cover only sessions related to the books where we look into the areas and topics actually, the relevant topics and the areas. So these are some of the, reasons actually the sponsors sort of said yes to it actually. Unlike some of the major, most of the LitFest actually, where each book is being kept as a session, we thought we will not go with the book, we will go with the topic. And in the topic, the books and other things comes out, So that sort of triggered, and even when we preached the story in the first year, a lot of people have come forward actually saying, look, Kerala is known for the kind of debates, dialogues, and the discussions. So why don't we partner to it? Ever since there has been a flow of, we have been, every year we have been having at least break even actually every single year for the last 5 years, except for here or there, a couple of lakhs, So that's the thing. And second is actually why no title sponsor actually. So that is one of the deliberate decisions we have taken actually. So at times, other sponsors refuse to come if there's a title sponsor, and if the whole thing of the title sponsor is actually projected to in a larger scale. So that's one of the decisions. The key decision is actually, a lot of people would love to be a part of the LitFest. A lot of guests would love to come as a part of the LitFest, where there's no title sponsor. For example, Arundhati Roy, Romila Thapa, these are some of the people who have come for the LitFest, and they don't go for any other LitFest in the country or elsewhere, even abroad. So that has been a major trend actually. That's one of the reasons we thought we will not go with the title sponsors actually, and not to get the brand diluted. Other thing is actually, when there's no government role across India, quite fascinating. It's earlier it was a government led by the right at the Congress and all. Now it's left actually with the CPM and all. Both these governments actually came forward actually for sponsoring the event actually. And sponsoring the event means actually they were quite lavish with funds actually. Decent funds, what government would usually do. About 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs or 5 lakhs, and different departments, whether it's culture, tourism, or the finance ministry. So there has been quite a lot of support. And having said that, we were quite clear that we will have a lot of discussions and debates, and there will be political, religious, or otherwise actually. But I think both the governments are okay with it. So that also gives confidence to other sponsors to come in and sponsor the event actually. It's a great place to debate actually. You get all kind of people. Kerala is a 100% literate place with 8,000 libraries across Kerala, small reading rooms, but 8,000, I mean, 8 per panchayat actually. So something like that, or you have a big reading population. The book sells in thousands and tens of thousands actually. So this sort of trigger, I mean, like a lot of sponsors are prompted because of these kind of statistics actually, in terms of there are more readers or as equivalent to something like a movie or a art festival, you know. So I mean, sponsors who are convinced that, I mean, Readers Festival or Literature Festival will make the same kind of sense in terms of sponsoring or the brand being visible there. And another thing is actually the media has been quite, you know, generous with the support for the event. Actually, a lot of every year, at least about 10 or 15 sessions go viral across India and elsewhere. So that has also brought in a lot of traction, a lot of social media visibility. So that also the brands likes it. And I can tell you one thing: the sponsors with the Kerala Lit Fest, the sponsors, what they've done is actually most of the top management people, be it Unimoney by the UAE Exchange or any other company, most of the top management people are there for the 4 or 5 days actually doing the thing. They work with the team, they work with the KLF team, you know, they just want to be seen over there as well. I mean, whatever companies, most of the companies do that actually. For example, we have one of the Paragon, which is one of the good food places in India actually. I mean, it's a very well-known popular restaurant here. So the whole top management team comes and serves for the 5 days actually as a part of the sponsorship program, or the resort, you know, these people all are seen there. So sponsorship part, we never had an issue so far, all 5 years actually. And these people prepare themselves actually for the Lit Fest actually. It's not just a sponsorship or the brand to be visible, but they're there actually. They get prepared, they call us, they work with us. They're there full time. You know.
That's interesting. You know, you're talking about the relationship also that you've developed with these sponsors, where, you know, it's as much as their festival as yours. So it's not necessarily an unequal relationship in that sense.
Absolutely. I mean, the one good part is actually we have a team of architects actually from Kozhikode area. So they usually manage the entire the venue, the infrastructure design. Not only they design, actually they make a budget and they look for the sponsors actually. So the part of the sponsors for the infrastructure comes from the architecture fraternity in Calicut. And another thing is actually government again, I mean, I don't want to emphasize more on the government. I mean, there's a permanent venue for the Lit Fest actually sponsored by the government. They have spent about 600 lakhs actually so far for the infrastructure right on the beach actually. So all these kind of things happen, and we have more than 300 volunteers for the last 5 years. And most of the volunteers remain the same. Actually, they are engineers, they are doctors, they are professors and all. They take about 7 to 10 days leave and be a part of the event actually. So this is something, a unique model we have developed, and our content also is more regional in the sense actually, though we have all the top guys, whether it's Noam Chomsky or Harare or you know, Arundhati Roy, you know, there's a lot of things which are regional and specific to things. The language also, it's about 60% is Malayalam. So all this brings in at least a crowd. I mean, you could see at any given day 60 to 70,000 people on the beach right for the festival, and actually in 5 days more than 3 lakh people. You know, so that's a kind of.
I'm just mindful of the time. I know you have a video also to play. Should we play that?
Please, I mean, if you can.
Okay. Yadu, would you be able to play the video as well?
In fact, this is a curtain raiser. We have done it for the 2020 version. So it's, I mean, 2021 will be, the numbers are more, the guests are also, we have other guests as well. So, I mean, that's, I mean, one thing is actually, I mean, other thing is we are also a publisher, but we ensure that, I mean, DC Books is not brought into this in any other way. We don't even brand DC Books at the LitFest actually. Nowhere you will see DC Books as actually highlighted, other than along with other partners. We are also one of the partners actually. But so it's purely Kerala LitFest actually. We deliberately thought LitFest should be named as a Kerala LitFest and not even DC there. And so those kind of branding also have the media actually. So the media in a way, the whole entire Indian media is there actually, be it NDTV, CNN, or even Scroll or Bint, you know. So all these media as well as the social media bloggers are there. Actually, we have special programs for bloggers actually. So there's a huge media fraternity actually happens to be a part of the Kerala Festival. So I mean, that also helps us. You know, some of the media spends about a couple of pages a day actually for 5 days. You know, so it also brings in a lot of time.
So Ravi, what I'm getting from you, and thank you so much for this. I think this is an excellent presentation because the structure of your festival, of course, is really different. You're not looking at, you know, the idea of pushing a brand per se, but what I can see is you're trying to create cultural capital, and the cultural capital is what the sponsors are partaking in. Whether the capital is coming from the government supporting it to a certain extent, and that gives encouragement to other sponsors to be a part of it. Or for that matter, also, as you mentioned, the second aspect is just the quality of audience. And that is also something that the sponsors appear to be looking for. And the third thing that you spoke about is very, very wide media interest, which sort of is actually, again, in the direction of a very firm footing that you seem to have on the positionalities of what content you will or will not showcase, which is everything. You will not take positionalities on what should not be allowed, and perhaps not having a title sponsor allows you the freedom to do that to a certain extent. But thank you so much for that. And I would like to pick up on a couple of these points as we go along. But at this point, I'd like to bring Udit in for the perspective of a beverage brand. And Udit, in your case, we're talking about a brand which is multinational. We're talking about experience being a very core aspect of your strategy. And given that reality, I'd love to hear from you about what is it that you look for when you are looking to partner with a cultural festival or project?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Lakshmi. I think just taking a step back on what we're trying to achieve as AB InBev in India, right? So we have a portfolio of premium brands, and premiumization is what we are betting on, right? So key bets in terms of the brands that we have in India are obviously Budweiser, Corona, and Hoegaarden, right? So those are the brands that we are betting on, and premiumization is how we sort of like hope to gather or create more share for us in the market, right? We know that for brands like ours, it's important to be embedded in culture, to be a part of culture, right? So that's what we are hoping to do in the sponsorships that we do, in the properties that we create ourselves, right? So we're hoping to embed our brands in culture. So the business objective, very simply, embed our brands in culture. Now, in terms of a brand objective, I think what the brands are trying to do, right? Very clearly, the audience that we have is young urban millennials, right? Those are the people that we're trying to win with. And we're looking for properties, we're looking for sponsorships which talk to these people in through their passion points, right? So be it music, be it fashion, be it whatever that might be. The idea is to be able to talk to these people, right? Talk to young urban millennials. I think that's the first point as we're looking for partners. I think the second thing is we're looking for long-term partnerships. We are not looking for short-term and tactical partnerships, right? Because we know the benefit really only comes to us when we have a longer-term association, right? So that's the second thing. We're looking for longer-term, not tactical. The third thing is we want to co-develop the experience. Lakshmi, you said absolutely building alcobev brands or building cultural brands. I think a brand experience becomes a very important part of sort of like propagating them. So it's important for us to be able to get in at the conception stage and be able to co-develop the experience with the partners, right? So that's kind of like the third one, which is really important. I think the fourth one for me, which is very important, is being distinctive and unique, right? What I am seeing personally is a lot of Me Too's sort of proliferate in the sponsorships, in the festivals sort of like landscape. and the space where our brands are at, our brands need consideration and preference, right? We do not necessarily need awareness, right? Our brands are famous already, right? So it's important that we are able to provide a distinctive, unique consumer experience, right? So I think that's the last thing for me. If I had to, I think that's very important that as festival creators think of these things on how do they, or how are they trying to be distinctive and unique in a rather cluttered market already, right? So that's kind of how we're thinking of it. I don't know if Ashmi might have any other questions.
I do actually, but thank you so much for very
Sure.
consolidating all of this in a clear point format. I'm going to pick up on one point here, throw it to you, and then perhaps move to Jobin. Is you spoke about long-term partnerships, which are not necessarily tactical, but more strategic in that orientation. And I wonder, how are you thinking about it in the last few months when this uncertainty begs for us to become tactical, begs for us to literally review our strategies every 6 weeks? How are you looking at, or have been looking at, support in the last 6 months in particular, and as we move along now?
Right. I think the first one, is the fact that we are increasingly betting on our owned IP, on our owned properties, right? So you've seen that with BudX, and for people in the group who don't know, BudX is basically our experiential and music platform, right? So we've been scaling that, virtually though over the last few months. So I think that's one, betting on our own platforms. I think. I don't think that shared experiences, the need for shared experiences has come down, right? Absolutely. People used to do it in the real world, and now it's moving virtual. And I don't think virtual is solving it fully just yet, right? But shared experiences are here to stay. I would sort of like go one step further and say the need for shared experiences is more today than it has ever been before, right? So I think the point I'm trying to drive is it's up to sort of like creators to try and figure how to sort of like conceptualize better virtual experiences, which talk to the need for engagement, which talks to the need for more inclusiveness in the virtual environment, right? So I think that's what we're doing. So one, we're creating our own. Second, we are looking onto partners like Insider and Book My Show to create better tech solutions for shared experiences, right? And hopefully, then partner with creators who would leverage these platforms or create platforms of their own.
So just to sort of recap, then your focus is very much on ensuring that there's a marriage between experience, given the new circumstance, but not looking at it only as a strategy, but moving towards an idea that allows you to work along with the other players because of just the uncertainty of where we stand.
That's perfectly right, because we are a company about bringing people together. That's what beer does best, right? So and when people are together, and that's the need for shared experiences, and nothing meets that need better than festivals, right? Or experiences together. So I'm saying we are always on the lookout. We don't think we have great solutions in the market right now, so we are working with partners to build some of the solutions, or and hopefully we would use them in the future.
Thank you, Udit. Jobin, this brings up a very interesting question for you because in Udit's case, his product brings people together, but in your case, you're trying to create these massive landmarks when people are not really, or for a while, people weren't really stepping out of their homes. But I remember in one of our earlier conversations, you also mentioned that one of your key concerns was how artists are going to survive in these times, and your approach to that idea sort of reflected in how you were sponsoring or supporting projects. I'd just like you to share a little bit about your strategies around COVID-19 and the immediate aftermath, but also how you're shaping that as we go along now.
Sure. Okay. See, initially, I think everything was a whole lot of uncertainty, but I think at some point or the other, you have to get over that, and we got over that very soon when we thought of taking up the Mahim Heroes of Bombay project, which is very close for us. Um, uh, every year when we do projects, we work on a 50-50 ratio between international artists and Indian artists. And how it happens is that, see, we need international artists to mentor Indian artists, and we need Indian artists also to help out the international artists with a joint collaboration and fulfillment of the whole project. That's how we have done it, and that's why you can see a lot of range of artworks in the projects that we do, right? Something really traditional, something really out of box which you would not see. uh, but yeah, this year how we have done is that, see, a lot of projects we have become slightly empathetic, thinking whether the project actually makes sense in the current times, right? And we are also looking forward to opportunities where there is a sense of responsibility as a brand for us as well. uh, but let me tell you this, at least as a leader brand, and as leader brands for others, that we should not take a pause and stop and things like that, because projects and whether it be festivals, I think as Udit said, it cannot be a one-time deal, right? You have to be in the game for the long run, because people will forget you if you're going to do one time and then run away, right? If you're in the game for 10 years, then they might still associate with you. Street art right now, Asian Paints owns it literally, right? If you want like really good quality projects to happen, Asian Paints has it at hand. Somebody else can do it, but it's still going to be a copy, right? It's still going to be with me. So right now with COVID, I feel a few changes that we have got is that we are focusing on Indian artists to do that. For an example, we are looking at Donate a Wall that is going to happen in Kerala, and our objective right now is to do only with Indian artists, but with an added caveat that 50% of artists would be from Kerala, right? So basically, people of the soil possibly give us better artwork is the idea that we have. Second is the artwork become a bit more empathetical. Not it need not be everything about heroes of which place that's going to be, but at least understanding that people around the world are stressed, and we don't want to give people an opportunity when people look at a landmark, at least for a few seconds, you are a bit, you calm down, or so it eases your process. That's what we're looking at. And overall, I feel Asian Paints as a brand, we don't plan on stopping on any of our processes. In fact, we have got so many projects lined up. It is going to be as big as what we have done last year. Clearly, I don't feel that once you build properties like art districts, you should take a pause. You have seasons like Donate a Walls, then you should take a pause. You should continue on with it. Whatever possibility, I feel you should support artists, and especially if it is possible to support Indian artists, you should do that. Something very intuitively we understood is that while we were doing such big artists and artworks and landmarks, for a paint organization which is into deco coatings, my painter is my biggest artist, right? He's going into a home and doing it every given day. So we have been working with those guys to take them on YouTube of the world, so that they can also become digital to some extent. A platform where our consumers can find them directly. So if you want a painter, you don't know where all you have to go to find them. So we are looking at things, but those obviously are at the business end of it. So hence, I will not go directly into that. But yes, opportunities where our real artists also get facilitated, or where people can find them, is something that we look forward to. I feel with COVID, people should not take a pause. We should still go and do what we do normally. I think that's how the whole economy's engines will work when all of us are into it.
I actually agree. I remember one of the earlier sessions that I was listening to where Udit was there. He'd mentioned something. He said that the brands will be judged by what they do during these times, which I thought was a very astute observation, and sort of speaks to what both of you are saying as well. I would like to ask Ravi here, though. Ravi, if you could come in for a second and give us a sense of your conversations with the sponsors that you've been talking about, and you're also concerned around taking festival digital. Now there's so many festivals that are going online. We've got the NH7 Weekender that's online next month. The Tata Lit Life currently is online at the moment. Kala Ghoda Arts Festival, as we got to know last week, is looking for online. With all of the proliferation of online engagement, and I'm going to touch upon the nuances of that, I just wanted to understand from you, as a festival brand IP owner, where are you with that thinking and your conversations with your sponsors, and how open or amenable are they to the idea of taking it digital?
There are two parts actually. One is with the online, we are able to get good speakers this year. I mean, we have a lot of Nobel Prize, a couple of Nobel Prize winners coming, Oscar and other people from across actually. So we do have good speakers this year, because they don't have to travel, for example. Orhan Pamuk has promised me last year that he will be coming. So it's much more easier that, I mean, he wouldn't have to travel all the way to be a part of it. Actually, we are trying other people. I mean, that includes some Nobel Prize from Science as well as from other Peace as Nobel Prize for Peace as well. So we may get 2 or 3 Nobel Prize winners actually for this year for the LitFest. Actually, that's one thing. It happens with some of the most prominent writers or celebrated writers and artists as well. So it's an immense opportunity in that front. Actually, second, as far as LitFest is concerned, actually, we thought we may extend. I mean, we may postpone it by a month or 2 if needed. Actually, that's what we are right now discussing. If that happens, actually, we will have a combination of both physical location LitFest along with the virtual. Actually, so it's a combination of both. I thought that would make some sense actually, because I mean, when the speakers talk on the video wall or otherwise, actually, they could at least see a decent crowd in front of them. So that's also happening. So as far as the brands are concerned, they're quite ready for it. Actually, they're quite excited with the kind of people who are coming in. So that's also a plus point actually with the virtual. Like Jobin said, it's really a most of my sponsors also wants to have the visibility. Actually, the sponsorship amount may be low, but again, cost is also low actually. So that's also happening. So we are also hiring studios across in different parts of India, and we are also organizing outside India actually studios actually for some of the people to go to the studios and discuss rather than doing it just on Zoom actually, so that it could be a more of a professional thing as well.
Ravi, that's excellent. First of all, congratulations that, since the time we spoke and today, clearly the conversation has moved further into the hybrid direction. So yeah. But just to sort of connect what you're saying, the hybrid model, to what Udit was speaking about, is the virtual experiences. Personally, I mean, I'll just bring my personal subjectivity into this. I don't think digital can replace live in any way whatsoever, but it does create new opportunities, as both of you have been speaking about. The one thing that Udit just mentioned a little while back was, how do you enhance the digital experience? And I would just like to sort of ask all of you from 2 perspectives. One is when you're looking at someone coming to you or someone co-creating an idea with you for a digital product or festival, that's on the one hand. What is it that you would look at when you're looking at that kind of a proposal? And secondly, if you could just enumerate a little bit, even if it's a bit jargon, we'll try and help our audiences with that, to understand how is it that you're looking at sort of ROI when it comes to digital. Now, I don't mean metrics which everybody can see, but how do you look at virality? How do you look at organicness of virtual content when there's so much of it out there? How do you relate that to successes for your own internal metrics? So if you could address these, perhaps starting with you since you mentioned it first.
Yeah, sure, Rashmi. Yeah, so I think we've created like a rather simplistic method in a company because we do a lot of sponsorships across the world, and it works on impressions into the consumer touch points, right? So, for example, the media impressions that we get, paid and earned together, right? So, and obviously, like the presence of the brand within those impressions. So that's a very simple one. The second one is the experience itself, which is at the place, and we've attributed, just given our experiences from across the world, we've attributed a certain value to an in-person experience, right? And again, the number of impressions or the number of people who walk in and experience that particular in-person sort of like interaction, right? So it's and for us, I think a third big one tends to be trials or the number of beers consumed, right? So it can become a significant driver of returns, right? So especially in music experiences when you come to think of it, right? So I think what we've done is we've leveraged all of these 3, consumer touch points into total number of impressions. Obviously, add that their sales bit into it to calculate ROI. But again, it's never as it's never a formulaic sort of like calculation of that nature. Because like I was saying, it's important. What we are trying to do for the brands with these experiences or with these festivals or sponsorships is to drive consideration and preference. Consideration and preference is not necessarily a numbers thing. It has to be a deeper connection that consumers can form with the brand, right? So hence, it really helps us if the experiences are distinctive and unique and customized to the brand, right? So all of those factors further come in addition to this numeric ROI calculation in us deciding which ones to back or which ones to partner.
Okay, thank you for that. Jobin, taking this to you. For Sharad Samman, I remember you mentioned the video that you made. It wasn't just the numbers, but you sort of complemented that with understanding how many building WhatsApp groups did it go into. Would you like to share a little bit about how you saw success in that video? Perhaps also talk about the video a little bit as well.
Sure. Sharan Saman, see, every year, obviously, Puja is going to be at home. Puja was going to be at pandals and things like that. This year with COVID, we were also not sure how to take it. But thankfully, Ogilvy and Asian Paints came together and we made a film. Then again, see, this is the beauty of letting sometimes artists do their thing. We asked for a 1-minute video. I think Udit can relate to me. We got a 3-minute video. Okay, so normally we say 3-minute videos are too long and things like that, but we let it flow nonetheless. What we understood at the end is that we did slight promotions on it. That was all about it. But each and everybody of us got the same video forwarded from all the Bengali groups that we could have, whether it was a friends group, whether any of Bengali mothers had some WhatsApp groups and things like that. So obviously we also went into finding out via the metrics of how many people would have forwarded into WhatsApp, and then trying to gauge in some sense where it would have originated from and how it came through. That is one aspect of it. That is when you understand that you have reached, the pop and moms and the crowd that you could have normally not touched. The youngsters that we have, very easy. We go on digital, we can easily measure all the metrics that we can, whether it be reach, impressions, clicks, likes, what you do with it. The best part is that we measure something called as tonality scores. So anything that you make as a festival, if you're planning to take it digital, that is what we always recommend. What tonality is it delivering to me? So the video basically gave me 100% tonality, which means 100% of mentions are positive. So that is the measurement that we look at. Sharan Samar video was a great hit. That is where we got that from. Sorry, Rashmi, you want to ask something? Or
Actually, if you could explain what tonality means exactly for.
See, it's a brand tonality, which means that it's a positive mentions divided by the total mentions that you will get. So we measure out how many of that will be positive. Brands have a difficult day, right, getting positive mentions, because everybody will have some complaint or the other. But a campaign getting almost 99% tonality scores are great. That's when you understand that really people like it. For a start and the work that we do around street art, it's slightly more complicated as such, although we don't have a magic way to measure it up. But what we do is that sites that we normally take up have to be at locations that physically people will have viewing to. We thought about it again, in COVID, how do we measure that? If you really want it, there is actually methods from Google traffic data where you can measure it out. We took it out, we took at recovery. Then we understood, see, each of our property lasts anywhere between 5 to 6 years. Okay. And on top of that, to add some bit of technology into it, we are now painting all our artworks with an advanced formulation of a brand called as Ultima Protect Lamino, which actually keeps the paint for 10 years. So the idea is that even if we do not recover the views right now, the property is going to stand for 10 years minimum, and hence we'll be able to take that out. For digital, like I told you that day, right, everything is in your hands. The minute you have it, you can clearly understand with what budget you want to reach where. But two key ways that we changed things post-COVID in terms of going digital is obviously, see, Asian Paints, at least from the start, we have been digital, so it was not a big change. But we have started cutting down video sizes and creatives in such a way that it is easily servable on Facebook, easily servable on YouTube, so that it comes between your binge, what do you call it, thumb stop moment, will easily pass through and you will not understand us being there. And also we have created digital journeys which start. So what happens is that anybody who goes through our video, we then obviously understand that then they will also like the other videos through recommendations and things like that. So hence we want to build a digital bubble around them, wherein they say that anything related to start, and if you really like our content, here is what we provide to you, and here is how we are able to serve that ad or serve that impressions to them. So that's majorly how we went uh, from physical to digital. For the pandal part, coming back to Sharat Samman, you won't believe, every year we used to go to the pandals and we used to tell them, you know what, hey, we are going to judge you, so this is our team, and things like that. This year we asked them to send us a video. Sorry. So this year we asked them to send us a video, and you won't believe. I feel that the next generation is in to this festival. I think COVID has been an opportunity for the next generation of puja pandals to come in, where these young kids with video cameras and mobile cameras were able to make us entries. So I strongly believe that this festival has worked beautifully for us, because we put those videos and put it on our handle, and here we are getting free organic views. So I don't think you can compete with organic views at any given day. Earned views are always better any which way. So like that, three aspects of how we are taking things digitally one by one, and I feel COVID has worked in the favor in terms of the long run, because physically I still will be restricted by the square meter of space that a place will provide. Digitally, I don't think I can be restricted like that.
That's honestly very encouraging to hear from both you and Udit about how you're looking at the digital environment and for the digital environment as a site in itself, the kind of bubbles that you can create and how that rationalizes into your strategy. Because I see that some of the audience questions are coming in, and one of the concerns and the anxieties that we had as we were speaking to our attendees is about how open you would be to digital experiences. And how open you would be to supporting or sponsoring projects within that realm. So it's great to hear how you're tackling that in your work. There is one question for Ravi though, and just taking it to you, Ravi. This is Sumit Roy. I know Sumit, actually, he's been running this really successful theater project festival that's currently on, the Good Theater Festival, last week and this weekend it's going to be on. And he's asking you a question. Why do you believe that in online events, you can't have an audience in front of you? He says in theater, we're finding the opposite to be true. Now we can see several hundred people in the eye across the globe. And I'm going to ask you to layer that question with the notion of experience, the physical experience of attending a talk and the digital experience of consuming that same content. How does that play out for you as a festival director or someone who's founded a festival?
With the festivals, actually, the speakers get, I believe, at least for the Lit Fest, unlike the Theatre Fest, actually, it's more of performance, and it's a brilliant way of auditions, and a lot of things happens there. So our speakers actually gets more confidence, actually, when there's an audience in front of them. So a lot of them will be able to, get the best out of, we'll be able to get the best out of them when if there's an audience in front of them. We have been trying this with, I run a management school differently, actually. So we have been, last 1 year, I've been experimenting with LED walls, faculty moving with speakers across and pointing on the LED walls, asking questions and all. So, that's something different, but it has been quite interactive, So earlier, nothing, it was quite static, actually. There was no questions, actually. Everyone was like, it's like a dead class to activating the class. So in the last 8 months, I have also done a lot of events as a part of the Kerala Theatre Festival, as well as the DC Books launches, wherever there's been StreamYard and a lot of other technology used, actually, along with some audience in front of them, maybe 10. So that did have more response and reactions from the guests, actually. So that's one thing we have been doing for the last 8 months, just as a preparation for the Kerala, just in case we have to be virtual in January 21 as well. So
thanks for that, Ravi. I know that Sumit has raised his hand. Sumit, I'll come to you in a second, who's one of our attendees. But I'm going to ask one question that had come to us earlier, which I thought is a very interesting one. And it's to all of you. So who would like to address that? The question is, if you're launching a new festival, one that hasn't been done before, what are some key pointers of how sponsors should look at new ventures, or how you would look at new ventures? And how late is too late to approach you? Perhaps, Udit, would you like to go first for this one?
Yeah, sure. I could do that. I think, again, I'll address the easiest part of the time bit first and then get to the rest of the question. I think, well, it depends on the nature of the property in my mind, and what's kind of like your promotion strategy and your sort of execution sort of like timelines. is when you have to just backtrack and figure when you need the sponsors to be in place, right? But I'd imagine 5 to 6 months typically, I think, is a good timeline, is what we've seen for things to fall into place, because I think these conversations with sponsors at least take a couple of months, right? So at the least. And also, like I was saying previously, as a partner, we would want to be part of the co-creation of the experience, right? So we would need to come in, and hence, like I was saying, we want to be long term, we want to be strategic, we want to be co-creators. So you need to get us in, well, almost at the conceptualization stage, and whenever that happens, right? So it's actually the ideal time in my mind. I think, what are some of the considerations? I think sometimes you just, and I, like I have, we work with a number of festival promoters, sometimes I have seen some promoters, and we work with one of them, how they created the property around a brand, right? So actually, and I don't know if you know this, but the Corona Ranthambore Music and Wildlife Festival, right? So we work there. And Subbu is the guy who sort of promotes it and runs it within the company. And he had the brand at the center when he was conceptualizing the property, right? So I think, like sometimes it really helps if you are already have an idea, because, well, I would imagine partners and sponsors are an important part of already thinking of brands and categories that could be intrinsic to your own, to the whole experience, right? So that's where I think it'll get much easier for you to be able to sell it and promote it. I think besides that, I think it's just, like I was saying, think about how you would stand out, because I would imagine all brands across categories would want to be associated with new different experiences, right? And I think something beautiful, and I would imagine Ravi and Jobun would agree, is how we're seeing the combination of passion points and experiences, right? There used to be festivals which were music festivals, right? And then the people brought in an element of street art, an element of fashion, so how can you combine? I think the combination of passion points is where there's a sweet spot in experiences right now. And maybe, that's something to consider as you are creating a festival too.
Thanks, Udit. And just to sort of draw the comparison, we're looking at broadly in India, there are very, very broadly, don't hold me to quote for this, but two kinds of festival makers. One firmly falls into the event management space, which is the positionality that you were talking about, thinking of the brand at the center, because they wouldn't conceive of a festival without the money. And then there is another kind of festival maker who wants to create a festival for the art. And that's where often the struggle is with sponsorship, because they're not willing to let go of their idea, or maybe there's a resistance to shaping the idea because of a very clear artistic and creative vision that they might have about how they want to take that forward. So I'm just drawing that comparison because I know that some of the questions that might come up would be in that realm. But I would like to take this to you, Jobin, as well. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the Q&A box, but a lot of questions are about how they could approach you because they're an artist and they'd like to sort of, pitch an idea to you, or, they want to sort of be a part of Donator Wall. So my question to you in this regard is, when you're looking at a new idea from an individual or a smaller festival, perhaps, what are the parameters that you would look at in even engaging with that concept and an idea, given the fact that your work is so, in some sense, responds to so many more individuals as well as smaller festival makers, along with larger organizations such as START?
Okay, sorry, I didn't see the chat box, but for those who are asking, you can obviously write to Start India. So you can just go to Start India Foundation and write to them. They do all the vetting and finding us the right artist. So that's the best way to reach to us. Um, Rashmi, sorry, can you just rephrase your question once again?
Sure. I was actually asking about with your work, and you're talking about a lot of visual artists, both independent.
Okay, how new festivals can. Okay, yeah. So see what we feel at Asian Paints is that it needs to be a very, very, very good fit for us. Uh, I don't think small or big is a big question, because sometimes a small festival will cater to a certain audience which I might not be genuinely possible to reach out through the platforms that I'm currently at. But trying to fit a square peg in a round hole doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for a brand as well. So if it has to be really, really genuine. I think in a previous conversation with Rashmi also, I was saying that street art, which start whatever we are doing, we are so keen to do about it is because it's a perfect fitment for us, right? So you look at us, right? So Udit has a bev brand and I have a paint, obviously a deco coating. We are into decor business now. So I most probably can't be at his festivals, and he ideally I think he can still manage at my festivals. But so that is the kind of dilemma we are stuck with. So I think that if people respect while they come to us for festivals, I think that makes sense. And if you are, as you said in the previous question, if you have an art and then you're going to be a bit stubborn about it, which I feel that you should be, because that is what your festival is going to be about. I feel that you should reach the right sponsors and convince them, not take the wrong ones and try to somehow run with it, because it will not run in the long run. Because the second season he will not see results, and that is where the disconnect will start.
Thank you, Jobin. I think we have time for just a couple of more questions from the audience. Sumit, I know you'd raised your hand. Would you like to ask your question, please? You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Sumit, I think you may have muted yourself again.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, actually, it was a growth on what Ravi had indicated, and he's quite right that when the speaker can see the audience, body language, like if you just go across and see how wonderfully she's communicating, that's the part that you're missing by keeping the audience out. Right now, as a result of webinar, the webinar culture has been block the audience off because they don't for the theatre festival. In fact, Rashmi probably knows the Red Curtain became from a Kolkata brand to an international brand in just 3 months, simply because we allowed the audience to be visible. Because people go to the theatre to be seen. Did you realize that? They actually go to the theatre to be seen. And that created the word of mouth. And I frankly learned word of mouth out of Asian Paints Sharad Chaman, because I was one of the members in OBM in 1985 when the idea was created. And word of mouth is what we learned from Asian Paints Sharad Chaman.
Thank you so much, Sumit. So that actually plays into what both Jobin and Udit were talking about, is the idea of co-creation, because you clearly have experimented and figured what is working for you and for your audience. And this is perhaps another common point that you could share on. I know that there is another person who's raised their hand, but it's a phone title. I can see Panasonic Eluga 12 active. If you're still here, could you unmute yourself and give your name and ask your question? We can only get you on audio in the case that you are not able to. Okay, so since we don't have that, team, do we have another? I can see someone else has also raised their hand, but I can't see who they are.
Hi, Rashmi. It's Vaishali Bisht from Hyderabad.
Hi, Vaishali.
I actually have a question for all the speakers.
Could you, sorry, I'm interrupting. Could you please introduce yourself and your festival before you ask your question, please?
Yes, I'm the artistic director of the Hyderabad Children's Theatre Festival. And this is a Children's Theatre Festival which used to happen as an annual event in Hyderabad. We completed our 10th year last year. And it's a festival where we have professional theatre groups come and perform for children. This is our first year going digital. And my question is largely, especially when we're addressing children, it's a very difficult choice at the moment for us to make because they're overloaded with screen time anyway, with school happening online and with their parents, occupying them with the various activities on the computer. But the costs of doing live events with very small audiences is also prohibitive for a theater festival. So I'm really looking for some advice on how to move forward.
Anybody who'd like to take that question? I can see both Udit and Jobin, you both unmuted. Would any of you like to try?
Yeah, I could go first. And Vishali, I can totally relate with the challenge that you find yourself in. I think what I have seen, and again, it's not something from my brand experience, but more that I've seen there have been some examples of mixing the two that have happened. And how do they do it? I'll give you an example of, imagine if there is a children's workshop and you actually send a box in advance of the activity. So while the children are on the screen, they're also engaged in some way through their other senses, besides obviously the screen that exists, right? So I think that could be one way in which you could try and see if there's something. I think the second advice that I could potentially give is we working with Insider, the Paytm Insider, and they're coming up with a technological solution which allows for much more functionality for shared experiences, right? Like Zoom is great, but Zoom's great for like corporate kind of meetings, right? What Paytm Insider is trying to do is customize it to music, customize it to other form of just broadly shared experiences, and maybe that could be something that you could leverage too. I bet you already know about it, but I thought I'd put it up.
Thanks for that. Udit, Jobin, would you like to venture a response?
Not specifically to that, but something around to just build upon what Udit said is that we recently had a similar challenge like this, because wherein you want to speak to a lot of influencers, but nobody's interested in seeing your face on the screen. I mean, as blunt as I can put it out there. So what we did is that how do you make so when we would have done a product launch or something like that, for that matter, you still would want him to physically or her to physically feel the product, see what we are offering and things like that. So what we did is that prior to we could do the launch, we sent everybody the kits out there. We told them to not open it and things like that. So then we got on board the session, and where everybody would jointly do it. So it's not just an experience where I get to see you or hear you, but I also get to live what you are doing out there. So when I am doing a reveal or I am experiencing something, you also get to do that. I think that's a great way for festivals to somehow try and bind both the physical and digital space. So for example, viewing would be free, but if you want to experience something, it's an added bonus on the ticket, something like that. That's something you can explore.
Thank you so much, Jobin. I'm afraid that's all we have time for. But before we close, I'd like to ask all our panelists to share any final thoughts that they might have. Ravi, perhaps starting with you, if there's anything that you would like to add as your final thoughts around the notion of sponsorships, particularly now, but the direction that you'd like to see brands also go into, and perhaps also cultural festivals to go into, given everything that we are dealing with right now. Ravi, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay. With the pandemic, one great thing I've realized is actually over the last few months is with the literature festival or any festival for that matter, the visibility for the brands are quite high, because the brand can go places actually. I mean, with the events being watched across the globe, most of the brands, maybe it's for the diaspora or maybe it's for the international audience. So the brand visibility is going to be high. I mean, whether it's Fevicol or it's Budweiser or Asian Paints for that matter, even for a diaspora, it makes a lot of sense actually, because it's going places. So I think the partnership is going to grow stronger in terms of a combination of the physical location wise and the virtual thing, So it's going to be a combination of the both, which is going to bring in a lot more brand visibility for the brands. So it's a sponsorship area for the existing festivals or for the events. Actually, it's going to grow much stronger, and the partnerships are going to be, like Udit said, it's going to be more of a co-creation, and partnership is going to be, I think, you start from where the festival starts as well. You're going to be a partner from day one.
Thank you, Ravi. Jobin?
So I think it's a tough time for everybody. It's not just you guys at the other end. We also sometimes think about it, and we also go through that. So I think we have to make sure that we provide value. If you are an organizer or if you're a brand, we have to provide value to what we come out with. And if value is justified, I think it will stand. A lot of times, because things are moving digital, a lot of festivals, a lot of sponsorships are vilified because it is digital alone. So So hence always look at the opportunity to somehow add a physical element to it. I feel that physically you are restricted by space, digitally you are not, but then there are a lot of pros and cons to both the ends. But as Asian Paints, we strongly believe that the partners that we made last year, we have already closed out with our Sharat Saman. We are planning to do everything that we want to do with Start. We plan to honor our commitments with the partners that we have done. A lot of people have asked how to get in touch with us. Please do get in touch with Start, or you can reach out to me as well on LinkedIn. It's fine. Uh, uh, Strong brands should continue to do what they were doing and support the artists and the festivals as much as possible. I think next year they will have more rewards and more brand following, a better tonality, and a lot of love from the consumers that is there in general. And that's my closure on it.
Thank you, Jovan. Udit, over to you.
Yeah, sure. I think I'll repeat some of the points that I've already said, but I want to emphasize on them. I think the first thing is the need for shared experiences is as acute as it's ever been, right? So, I would imagine that, creators would find more audiences now ready to buy into their experiences than ever before, right? So that's the first one. I think the brands are also, we've seen the businesses recover, at least in the product side, not so much in the services side. But the need for brand, for reach, for depth of engagement is also as acute as it's ever been, right? So the brands are there, and I would imagine that they have the resources to support these. I think the third point and the last point I want to make is that virtual experiences are here to stay, right? We, at least as a brand, we strongly believe that it's not a temporary thing. It's going to become a segment within experiences, right? And you would have like some people like to just watch TV and experience it through that, and some people like to go do it in the real thing. That's how these would become, and and gives opportunity for creators to just sort of create new properties meant for the virtual world, right? Which could be a new area to explore too, right? So those are kind of like my thoughts. But yeah, great conversations though.
Yeah, thank you so much, Udit, Jovan, and Ravi. I think it's been an incredible session. I think when we were curating this, we were a little worried to see that there may be rejections. There may be maybe it's not the right time to sponsor or support corporate cultural festivals. But thankfully, this entire discussion has taken an extremely positive and I think a very upbeat turn in just giving us a sense of how do we look at continuing to do our work in the cultural space, but also finding a common pathway with brands to be able to see that we're able to create a more inclusive, future with a better and shared experience for everyone. So thank you so much for all your inputs. It's deeply appreciated. I'd like to take a moment right now to also thank all of our teams at British Council and the Artex for the wonderful work you've been doing both behind the scenes and on the computer screens. And to all our interpreters for our steps in the area of making this kind of discussion more inclusive and diverse and not just in English. We have illustrated graphics for all of our sessions, which we usually give out about a week after the session is over. So if you'd like that, please write to us. We'll be getting in touch with you to share those graphics with you. Lastly, we are also initiating a network for festival managers, directors, and leaders. So do expect to hear from us soon, because we'll be encouraging you to have these conversations, not just during our monthly sessions, but also between sessions. Our future sessions are going to be looking at models of digital festivals and the future of college festivals, which is currently very, very quiet and actually is a massive revenue generator for colleges as well. For all of you who are watching us on Facebook, thank you very much. We will be going offline very soon, but for all of you who are on Zoom, we're going to continue the conversation for another 15 minutes. We're going to turn your videos on. So please continue to have the discussion, but formally we'll be closing the session on Facebook. Once again, thank you. Have a great evening ahead and stay safe.